There's a recent article written in The Atlantic called "The Misunderstood Reason Millions of Americans Stopped Going to Church." And in this article, the author, Jake Metter, argues that most of the arguments today made for why people have stopped going to church involve church scandals or church abuse. Really, the reasons that Christians have started emptying out of churches in droves are much simpler and more mundane than that. The reasons, he says, are because people don't have time for church. They don't have the energy to go to church after an 80-hour, 60-hour work week when the only time off that they have is Sunday morning. They don't have time because of the crazy schedules that we put our kids on concerning extracurriculars and sports. And they don't have time because of the sacrifices that everyone is making to stay afloat financially, to try to better not only their lives, but the lives of their children and their families. There's just too much going on. It doesn't make sense. And he kind of argues towards the end that the solution to this is just to buck up and realize that the church, being part of a church, is a sacrifice. And I do think that that's true on some level. My family goes to church pretty much every Sunday, and it definitely is a sacrifice. We have 2 toddlers. It's not easy to get out of the door. Usually we're late. Most of the time they don't behave well, and I feel like we hardly hear anything at all, but we go anyway. So yes, it is a sacrifice to go to church. But the reason I go to church is not because that community in and of itself feels any different to me than the community I have around my home and at work. And I would actually say my community in my neighborhood and at work is much stronger than the community I have at church. I think we have to stop arguing for reasons to go to church because of the community that it brings us. That is a thing that church should do. I'm not arguing against that. Members of the church should care for each other. I hope that they are. We should love each other. We should bring each other meals and check in on each other. But that's not the primary goal of the church. The primary goal of the church has always been and will always be the proclamation of the gospel. You lose that, you lose preaching on Sunday morning that Christ has died for you and that he has risen again for your righteousness that is yours now. You lose that, and you lose any sense that the church is any different than any other type of community, any other type of organization, any other type of structure in the world. I had a friend a few years ago tell me this exact thing. She said, I don't go to church anymore because I have community elsewhere. So why would I go to church? Why would I drag myself out of bed Sunday morning after Sunday morning when I could just go to brunch with the people I love most? And she has a good point. We have got to remember that church is mainly about hearing that proclamation of the gospel, hearing first that we are sinners in need of a Savior, and hearing that Christ has come to save us, that he has died for each and every one of us. This is what makes the church. It will always make the church. So if you are in need of hearing that, I hope that you will seek that out, that you will make the small sacrifice to get up on Sunday mornings, because you know that hearing that word proclaimed to you, receiving God's body and blood in the Lord's Supper, being proclaimed righteous in baptism, these are the markers of the church that set it apart as an institution and as a place from every other thing that you could be doing on Sunday morning.